Oh boy, it's me again. Coming at you from my office floor. Barbara, Dr. Bob, would you like to come join me for another video? No, she's mad at me. Hello, you come to join me? Welcome. The doctor is in. Okay, hello. So I'm in school, as you might suspect, and it is kind of out of kitten season. There are still like some kittens and whatnot, but we haven't really gotten to the swing of things, so there's not a whole lot going on. You guys in my last video were inquiring about who is Miss Dixie, what is Miss Dixie, how do you get started, blah blah blah. So I thought we could do a nice short sit down, explain how I got from graduate school to vet school with a rescue. And before we get too deep into it, before we get too deep into the woods, I need you to know that is my microphone plugged in? Sure is. None of this is legal advice, especially when I start talking about establishing a 501c3. I don't really know what I'm doing. And if you are interested in doing that part, you should definitely speak to a lawyer, someone who knows what they are doing and can help you through it, because I am not that. So let's break this down briefly. I grew up in Colorado. I went to undergrad in Colorado, and I didn't really know what I wanted to do after I finished my undergraduate degree. During undergrad, I was involved in a lot of undergraduate research. I studied fruit fly and fruit fly development. It was very exciting and I kind of liked it, and I didn't really know what I wanted to do next with my life, so I figured why not that. So I applied to grad programs. I got into a grad program. I don't know how. I got into a grad program in Seneca, South Carolina, and I came down here and got my PhD in biological sciences. That's why they call me Dr. Mary. I don't know if any of you guys care about the experience that is graduate school, but it's very hard and it could be very lonesome and sad and depressing. So as I was finishing up my dissertation, because for those of you who don't know, when you get a doctorate, you have to propose your research, do the research, and then you have to write and present your dissertation. You always do this one last. So I was in this phase of my dissertation, my finishing up my graduate degree, and I was really, I guess trigger warning, we're gonna talk a little bit about depression. I was very depressed. Extremely depressed, and we just moved into this house, and so it was very empty. We only had Mr. Kitty and my dog Dixie, who we'll get into in just a second. And so I started fostering kittens, and I went through the local humane society. I'm really just boiling this down to the bare bones. I guess let's take a full step back. When I moved down to South Carolina from Colorado, I brought my dog Dixie with me. This is Dixie. She's wonderful. She was amazing. She was like the best girl. I am definitely a cat girl, but this girl was like a cat dog. She was just amazing and so smart and so wonderful. Once I got to the end of my grad degree and started fostering kittens for my local humane society, she loved them. She loved to be with them. She loved to herd them because she was a border collie. She was just very gentle and wonderful with kittens. So basically, I started fostering for my local humane society, and one thing you need to know about me is I like having answers. And sometimes when you work in a very high volume like foster kitten scenario, you don't necessarily get a lot of answers because they don't have the funding for that, or they don't have the space to do that, or the vet capacity to give you like really in-depth answers. So I started bringing my foster kittens to my vet to try to get some answers for some of these kittens. Their poop problems or limping problems or eye problems, just trying to get answers for these guys. And as I started bringing them to my vet more and more, my partner was like, you should just start your own nonprofit. I mean, you're already spending your money doing this. Why don't you just start your own 501c3, and then at least you could maybe ask for donations or maybe get a discount for it because you're a rescue. So I was like, okay, let's do that. I sat in this room 5 years ago at this point, almost 5 years exactly. In 2019, I sat in this room, figured out how to file for a 501c3. I didn't know what to name it, and I love my dog, so I named it Miss Dixie's Kitten Rescue, and that is what it is called. That is what it is today. And so it started with me in just this room, just hanging out and foster kittens. And slowly over the next 5 years, it grew. In 2020, obviously we had COVID, so it got a little weird. I got a few foster homes, so I was able to rescue more kittens. And then the year after that, I got Bethany, and I found TikTok and kind of grew from there. That really took off. It was kind of crazy. That was 2021. And then we got more volunteers and more fosters, and we've grown into this fairly large organization in the South Carolina area. And now now we are a team of, there's 3 of us who are kind of like in charge of it, and then there are a lot of fosters and volunteers who help us make the world go round. And in the midst of all that, last year I decided that I would like to go to vet school. That felt like what I was meant to be, what I was meant to do, so that I could then be a vet for the rescue and kind of help us with some of the things that we want to do and are doing, with the ultimate goal of hopefully opening up our own location for Miss Dixie's to have like our clinic and to do spay neutered for our animals, and also have like an adoption center. That's like the really big, broad picture of Miss Dixie's. Of course, there's ups and downs, there's trials and tribulations, there's good stories, there's bad stories, but here we are. And a lot of you have asked, how do you get into this? How do you get into fostering? And it's actually very simple. I highly recommend you look in your area for a humane society or a shelter. They always have foster programs ongoing. They always have things like that. And in general, most of those places, not only will you be able to foster for them, they provide all supplies and they provide all medical supplies. I recommend going to an organization that does provide all medical and all supplies, because in my mind, my fosters are doing me a huge favor by allowing me to intrude on their life by giving them animals to take care of. So I do my best to provide everything that I possibly can for them. And look at her. Barbara Bubble. So if you're looking to foster, make sure the organization covers those costs. That's a big thing. So you can start big with the Humane Society, and then you can also go to smaller organizations like myself. Miss Dixie's is kind of an anomaly when it comes to smaller organizations, and by no means, I don't mean to say this like you should not support your smaller organizations, because they need you probably more than the Humane Society because we're smaller. And I remember when things were really, really tight money-wise, supply-wise, and I felt like I was just like barely surviving in the early days. But now, thanks to you guys, we're thriving, we're doing great and able to make some big changes. But even if you go to a small organization, sometimes you might need to pay for supplies. And if you're able to do that and you can afford to do that, that's awesome. But the organization should still also pay for medical. That's just like my advice. If you want to help a small organization, you might need to help them in terms of getting litter and maybe some dry food and wet food. But medical should absolutely be covered by the organization that you're fostering for. All medical. You should not pay for anything medical at all. So if you want to get into fostering, that's what I recommend for those 2 things. The other thing you can do is volunteer. So we have volunteers who don't foster for us, but they help us in things like driving kittens to and from places, helping us with TLDR, helping us with social media. Like, there's just so many options. Look at this playful youthful girly. There's so many options that you can do in terms of helping an organization. If you have some skills, like if you're a video editor, or you're really good at social media, or you're really good at accounting or something, you can always volunteer your skills to help that organization. That's a big thing to help the animals. And then, of course, if you can't do any of that, and if you're able to, you can always monetarily donate for the organization. If you can't do that, which I understand, the world is wild right now, you can always just share their posts or interact with their posts, and that helps them get to eyes that people can see. I used to say a long time ago, and I don't really say it much now, but because it's kind of a long quote, but here we go. I always say, if you can't adopt, consider fostering. If you can't foster, consider volunteering. If you can't volunteer, consider donating either supplies or money. And if you can't donate that, which is fine, again, anything small like sharing posts, sharing fundraisers, that helps a bunch. So yeah, that was like the speed run of Miss Dixie's, what Miss Dixie's is, who Miss Dixie's is. If you guys have any other questions, you can leave them in the comments, and I am happy to answer any questions. Like I said, I am not a lawyer, so I can't answer a lot of those things, but I'm happy to answer any other questions you have. I hope this video was somewhat informative and gave you a little background on Miss Dixie's Kitten Rescue, what we are, where we are, and what we do, and how you can get involved. You just kind of got to start somewhere and go in with the mind that, you know, you may have to try a few organizations before you find the one that you love. Some of our fosters have been with us for years and years, and some of our fosters are new. And it's always kind of a trial and error basis. Some of our fosters, you know, they don't want to stick around, and that's fine, or we're not necessarily the organization for them, meaning maybe we ask them to hold cats and kittens longer than they would like to so they can go to a more high volume place, or maybe they're fine with that and they've stuck around for years. We have a lot of fosters like that. So I'm just rambling at this point, but I love you guys. I appreciate you guys. Very stressed with school right now for some reason. I feel like after break I just kind of exploded, and here we are, but working to get it together. We'll have some cat videos coming up. You'll be shocked to find out I might have a new cat for you guys to meet, but we'll just see how that goes. TBD on that one. But yeah, that's it. Love you guys. Appreciate you guys. That is all. I love you guys. Unsubscribe below. Goodbye.